Welcome to Spark Faith with me, Dr. Kris Sargent. This show is about renewed health, rooted in truth, and restored by grace. What does finding health look like for you? Do you have a vision for your future self and a way to get there? I'm Dr. Kris, and after 33 years in functional medicine and a lifelong journey through brain health, weight loss, hormones, mindset, and faith, I know that real transformation doesn't come from willpower or white-knuckling your way to wellness. It comes from gratitude, honoring your body as the temple that God created. This show is about body stewardship, not shame. It's about rewiring your mindset, your metabolism, and your spirit to find lasting health without the grind. I'll help you cut through the noise, see opportunities instead of obstacles, and finally live the healthy, purposeful life you were created for. Let's spark faith and transformation together. Spark Faith starts now. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Spark Faith Show. I am Dr. Kris Sargent, and I have a really cool show today. We are talking about calorie math. What is that? I know calories in, calories out. Nobody wants to hear about it. So I have decided to take a little bit different, view of it. And particularly for my perimenopausal women over 40, I think this is going to shed some light on why calorie math doesn't always work the way it used to work anyway. If you have experienced a calorie issue right now in this space, right? So I just really want you to know that really you don't need to fight your body. Right? You need to give yourself just a tiny bit of grace and not so much guilt. This episode can be really permission giving. And I really want that for you. I want you to give yourself some permission to shift just a little bit of thinking around this. And this is definitely going to be a little bit of a science lesson as opposed to a faith lesson. But just know that I just want to give you permission to struggle less, right? We don't need to have struggles like we're struggling right now. The frustration that you have, honestly, most women that I work with are not overeating. They're overthinking, they're overmanaging, and they're underfueling. And so when we can shift from food being some kind of emotional release, which, hey, I am guilty, and someday we'll talk about my popcorn problem. And if we can shift from food being some kind of emotional thing or something that we think we're supposed to be doing, or we're supposed to eat such and such a way because TikTok said so, let's shift that into thinking about food as fuel. Right? Food can just be fuel. And just like gas is for your car, you have those numbers on the gas thing, right? When you're filling up your car, like 87, 89, 93. Well, maybe your fueling right now is like a 50, right? And what you really need is that 93. So let's talk about it that way. Instead of thinking about all the things that food can mean, we put that meaning onto food. Food just comes and it's innocent sitting there. And then we say what it means to us in our heads, in our subconscious, in all of the crazy that we have in our society around food. So that's where we're going to go today. We've all have like tracking apps on our phone. I know that MyFitnessPal, I don't get paid by them. MyFitnessPal is my favorite. Maybe you have a favorite. Maybe you're constantly doing this mental math. How many carbs have I had today? How much protein have I eaten? Maybe this is the thing. Or you just have so much guilt when the scale doesn't cooperate with all the tracking apps and your mental math, and all of a sudden the scale doesn't move. It is super emotional, and I have lived it. I get it. So let's try to find a different strategy, right? This is the issue. It's strategy. It's not your character necessarily. And excuse me, we've talked about being able to keep promises to ourselves, and that's a different show. So let's assume that you're doing all the things. You could show me your fitness pal and you wouldn't be lying, right? I get it. And I've also had those months where I could show somebody my fitness pal. I put everything in, I swear, and I have gotten no change. So I get that. So the issue is strategy. It's not about your character. And today is going to be about relief and not rules. Okay. So calorie math can seem super logical, right? Calories come from lab measurements, but not living bodies, right? And it feels scientific and it helps us feel like we're in control. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like feeling in control. And I like being able to say, hey, this is what I've done and track it. But so we think that like numbers equal control and control makes us comfortable. And that can work short term. It may also have worked on our younger bodies. And now we do the same shift that we used to do and nothing happens, right? I used to just shift out a couple things, add a salad, take this out, and boom, I'd be down. That's not so easy, right? It's taken me a good year to lose 10 pounds, okay? And 3% body fat. So just know that it can take some time. And I have not been perfect, just so y'all know, not perfect. And the studies around calories are male dominant, okay? They don't use females as much in a lot of the clinical studies because of our body shifts and our hormonal shifts, and males don't really do that as much. So a lot of the studies are done on male bodies, and they're going to react completely differently. They naturally have more muscle mass than we do. They're going to be completely different. And so I just want you to stop promising yourself like, hey, if I hit that number, then my body will obey. I wish it was that easy. It just isn't. Bodies are not calculators, they're communicators, and your body is trying to tell you something. So, we've talked a lot about the changes that happen after we're 40 years old, over 40. We have the hormonal shifts with estrogen supporting insulin sensitivity. And when estrogen drops, we can become insulin resistant. I've talked a lot about that, right? Progesterone decline affects your sleep and your stress resilience. So if you're not making as much estrogen, not as much progesterone, you're not going to get as much deep sleep and restful sleep. And that's going to affect resilience and your immune system, right? Our stress response becomes a lot louder, right? Cortisol spikes faster and it takes a lot longer for it to come down. And because we have lived a little bit of life, right? We may be already in this little cortisol place where we've been having a lot of stress, and cortisol is already not our friend. So stress responses are real. They're real. And they do affect the way that we take in calories. Yep, emotional eating, right? But they also affect our metabolism. And I am going to harp on this until y'all are sick of hearing it, but your muscle is your metabolism. And as we age, we can lose so much muscle. And I'm going to be talking about that next week, about how GLP-1s and dieting, which we're going to talk about today, really just tear down our muscle mass. And this is not going to be our friend in the long time. Longevity is correlated with maintaining our muscle mass. It's super, super important in maintaining our metabolism. So after 40, your body is going to prioritize survival, not necessarily aesthetics. And we don't want to just be in that survival mode, right? We want to thrive. And so we're going to have to shift some things around. And so I call this like the stress restriction loop. And this is also what really can hurt our metabolism a lot. We get hyper focused on our calories. We get over vigilant about our food, and we get a lot of guilt around that. And we're afraid to eat, right? And that elevates cortisol. Okay, that is just not what we need to be doing right now. We need to keep cortisol down. It causes blood sugar swings because we're afraid to eat. Maybe we're not eating enough. We're taking and eating a little brownie, and then we have a Diet Coke. Like, we're making the choices that don't make sense necessarily, instead of making choices that do make sense. So there are some physiological consequences to doing that, and that elevated cortisol, blood sugar swings, and guess what? We are going to put fat exactly where we don't want it. Ugh. I know. Hate that, right? So this is adaptation. And in order to, I'm going to just basically explain it this way. Your metabolism doesn't stop. It doesn't break, but it definitely can downshift, right? Going slower. And so you'll have less energy in when you're not eating enough fuel, when you're not taking in the right types of calories, does not equal a healthier metabolism, right? If your metabolism is slow and you keep feeding it less, it is going to be less. That's just the way it's going to work. So your body compensates, right? It's not rebelling. It's just doing its job to keep you alive. We blame ourselves, right? We blame ourselves for a lot of different reasons. The diet culture is a lot of moralistic language, right? Good foods, bad foods, cheating, falling off the wagon. We say all of these things and we don't even, like, they just come out, right? Oh, that's not a good food for me. That's a bad food. And we're making these judgments on food, but it's really not about that, right? This is like, in Christianity, this is like works-based righteousness versus grace, right? So we don't need to do that. We're going to have some grace. We can have self-discipline, right? We can use our gratitude to fuel our discipline, which I've talked about before. And that way we don't get so burned out, right? Discipline without safety net of grace really can just lead to a lot of burnout. So God is not disappointed in your metabolism or your choices. He's not. He wants you to be healthy. He wants to love you, and you can love him by just making some quick shifts. There is a hidden cost that a lot of people just don't really want to talk about. And weight loss isn't fat loss, right? Most of the time, if you're under fueling, you are going to shed muscle, you're going to shed thyroid support, you're going to shed adrenal support, and you're going to shed your resting energy. And so you're going to be tired, you're going to have this fatigue, you're not going to feel well rested. Because muscle is so metabolically active, it's expensive. So our body is going to protect our fat because fat can be used in a pinch, but it's not necessarily going to protect our muscle. And so that's why, like, weight loss often makes future weight loss a lot harder because you're spending muscle and you don't have that metabolism anymore. So you can get smaller and like slower at the same time. However, what we want to do is build muscle that's smaller than fat. I always say that fat is fluffy and muscle is tight. So a pound of muscle equals a pound of fat, but muscle or fat is fluffy, and so it takes up more space. So we want to start to gain some muscle mass. So what actually works over 40? We are going to shift from subtraction to nourishment. And we've talked about protein so many times but when we can get a higher level of adequate nutrition in the right kinds of nutrition, then we can really start to support that muscle mass. And that means adequate protein. I know I harp on that a lot, but that creates a stable blood sugar and less cravings at the end of the day or anytime during the day. It will absolutely support strength over scale obsession, right? You can get stronger and be less concerned with your scale. And it's going to help your sleep and stress recovery. So maybe we need to reframe some of those goals that you have instead of just using that number. Although I think for me, it's the number is important. Like once a week, I check in with myself because that helps me stay on track, not obsessively, but it helps me stay on track to know where I'm at. I have a scale that also gives me some body fat feedback. And I'm a fan of any of those kind of devices because it can give you just some data, right? You may not be losing any pounds, but your body fat goes down. Wow. That's exactly what we're looking for, right? Not muscle mass loss. We want that. So if we reframe energy before weight, we're going to fuel our bodies properly. And then we're going to go for strength over size. Let me tell you something, ladies, about size of clothes. I can wear anything from a small to an extra large. In pants, I can wear anything from a 6 to a 12. And it just depends on how they're cut. So this is not a good measure necessarily for strength, right? It's just not. So health and healthy eating and having the right amount of fuel for your body is what's going to restore your metabolism, right? It's not the other way around. Your metabolism can't restore your health unless you're feeding the metabolism correctly. So God's design is really responsive, right? When God put this whole crazy body together, he did not mean it to be or feel punitive. His design is exactly the way it's supposed to be. So we can shift what we're doing in response to that. That's the thing, right? God's design is responsive, not punitive. Nobody's punishing you for being over 40. Your body isn't betraying you, it's just responding to what you're doing. And so when we can start shifting our view of food into fuel, now how would you want to fuel your body? Right? What is optimal fuel for your body? And for those of us over 40, we have to get enough protein, whether that's in the form of eggs or beef or chicken or fish or shellfish. A good protein shake can really be helpful in the morning because it doesn't take that long, right? Uh, I am a fan of Clean Simple Eats. I'm a fan of Metagenics has a great protein. Orthomolecular has a great protein. So there's a lot of ways that you can shift and even still maintain some vegetarianism if that's your thing. That means you need to be taking some other vitamins for sure. But there is a way to get enough protein for yourself all the time. And so God's design is responsive, not punitive. Partner with your body, right? This is going to take some acceptance work. And that's not always the easiest because we have in our minds the way we thought it was going to be, or the way it should be, or the way we think it should be. And we may have to back off and maybe do some journaling about the way it actually is. Oh, I know that's so challenging because we thought it was going to be this way, but it's that way. And, we've all had different journeys. Some of us have had a lot of injuries. Some of you have had life things that have happened. Some of you have gone through cancer treatments. All of those pieces of your health story add up to where you are today. And your past does not have to define your future, right? Your history is not your destiny. So we can shift some of those things right now. You don't have to stay where you are. You really can shift. And I've had to shift. I've had to shift a few times. Um, I decided this year at 61, like, hey, what can I do with a 61-year-old body? Right? What can I do with this thing? Can I gain some muscle mass? Can I get my clothes to fit a little bit better? What do I need to shift in my diet? Because I was already eating pretty clean. What do I need to shift specifically in my diet that will shift my body and I can work with my body better? I started wearing a glucose monitor. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not for you, but it gave me some data on some carbs that I was eating that I thought were good for me. And I found out that they were spiking my blood sugar. Okay, well that's not good because we've talked about that a lot already. Like we don't want that kind of spike because then it's going to lead to craving and fatigue and it burns out our cortisol. Like we don't want that kind of stress in our body. So I had to learn how to partner with my body in response to some new data. And I look at labs as data, I look at the scale as data. That's all it is. It does not have to be your self esteem. It does not mean anything about how valuable you are. Your scale doesn't mean any of those things. And we have definitely in our culture conflated those things, right? We've put those things together to mean things that they don't really mean. And for me, shifting from being so scale focused to being more data focused has really helped a lot. So I'm going to encourage you. I got a Hume, Hume scale. I do not get paid by them. And it's got the little handles, and I can track my body fat. I can track hydration levels. You see, I wear an Aura ring, so I can track some things through that. Like I'm just tracking data. And then I'm responding to the data that I have. So if I don't sleep well one night and my ring says, hey, you're not really recovered, I'm not going to go hit it hard at the gym because that's just going to leave me in a place of more fatigue. I'm going to take it a little bit easier. I'm not going to do zero. I'm going to walk instead of run. I'm going to lift light instead of heavy. I'm going to make some shifts on a daily basis instead of being so like, hey, Kris, you got to do this or you got to do that. It's running day. It's leg day. Well, maybe it's not, right? Or maybe it's leg day, but maybe I'm going to go to a bar class instead of a lifting class, right? And get some work done, but different kinds of work that's less stressful for my body that hasn't recovered properly. So we can partner with our body instead of seeing it as the enemy. And I really want to remove all the shame that you may have right now. You didn't fail. Your body didn't fail. You adapted to stress. Whatever those stresses are, that's what you've done. You've just adapted to stress. And so now that you know that, you have a different view of all of that, right? Now we can bring this back to center. We can use our data. We can see that we've adapted to stress, and now we're going to adapt differently. So for me, grace is going to precede effort. Grace is going to precede my effort. I'm going to give myself and my body a lot of grace. Like I said, that doesn't mean zero. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do nothing and lay in bed all day because that's not going to help my muscle mass. I'm just going to do different. And I think doing different is where we can have that grace preceding our effort, right? Just doing different. And then healing is going to flow out of that safety that you feel. Like, okay, I feel safer because I may or may not be recovered. And if I'm not recovered, I don't want to push too hard. I will push very hard on those hard days. When I have recovered and I have slept well, oh, I am going to hit it. I'm going to run my 3 to 5 miles. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to lift heavy, or I'm going to do a hot yoga class or something like that, so that I can really work my body when my body's ready to be worked. It just takes the data and shifting data from meaning something like I'm not worth it, or I'm worthless, or my self-esteem equals the number on the scale. Because for many years, that's the way it was. So healing really can flow out of the safety net of understanding what your body's going through and why it's going through that. So just to kind of summarize this whole thing, restriction really teaches your body to conserve. And that is not what we're going for. We want to build muscle. We want to be vibrant. We want to thrive. We really don't want to conserve what we have. We want to shift what we have. And so we don't need to be restrictive in some of those things. We need to do different. Like I said, we need to have more grace for ourselves. We need to get some data. Data is super important. I know I sound like one of those biohacker geeks, and I kind of am, so that I can teach you about it. So here's the thing. Next week, I am going to be talking a lot about muscle and how we lose muscle, and why really protecting our muscle is absolutely crucial as we age, right? It's going to prevent fractures. It's going to maintain our bone density. It's going to maintain our hormones better. It's going to maintain our brain chemistry better. I know we're thinking like muscle does all that. Muscle does all kinds of really, really cool things. So let's just land before you try to fix anything. Let's land this thing, and really let's get back to remembering some basics. And we're just going to have to start with the basics. So we're going to do a lot next week about that, and talk about the ups and the downs of GLP and GLP-1s and some of those kind of things. And I just want to leave you renewing your health, rooted in truth and restored by grace. I love you guys so much. Thanks for listening, and hit subscribe, would ya? Love you. Bye. You've been listening to Spark Faith with me, Dr. Kris Sargent. This show is about renewed health, rooted in truth, and restored by grace. Tune in every Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific on the Transformation Talk Radio for more simple, faith-fueled steps to live the vision God placed in your heart. Are you ready to take the next step? Schedule a discovery call or connect with me at drkrissargent.com. That's DRKRIS Sargent.com. While you're there, download my free ebook, Endless Energy, the 6 non-negotiable keys to endless energy, and sign up for an upcoming masterclass. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share the show, and I'd love to connect with you on social media at Dr. Kris Sargent. Let's keep sparking faith and transformation together. Can't wait to see y'all next time.